Pretty cool.
Well, man.
Welcome
back, guys.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Everything's so neat. Yeah.
I'm super excited today because we are back on with the Legends in My Own Mind series. It's been on kind of hiatus since the pandemic started and everything. Rather than trying to Zoom calls and anything, and there hasn't really been a lot of wrestling going on, so it was easy for me to just kind of step back and take a little time off. But we're back now. Things are starting to open up. The world's starting to get going, and there's even some wrestling on the horizon. So I wanted to get back into getting geared up. I started all this. I started several shows because I was feeling tired. I was feeling burnt out on wrestling, and I needed to get re-energized. And so I wanted to get around to some of the guys that I come up with, and some of the guys that had memories, and guys and just get back to when I loved it and get myself re-energized and take some trips down memory lane. So I can't think of a better way to kick things back off than with the father of Central Illinois Pro Wrestling, the one who started it all, the greatest, the oldest?
Probably closest, maybe.
Guys,
I thought it was grandfather too.
The grandfather of Springfield, Illinois, the grandfather, Capital City Wrestling. Guys, I'm sitting here with Rip Mystic today.
Hello, internet world, and all these fancy cameras. I feel like I'm out of time.
Out of time?
I'm the guy out of time.
You are kind of the guy out
I look
of
at
time.
you more of a dad is wrestling around here. I think I'm the grumpier old.
Yeah, the grumpier old.
The rocking chair guy.
Yeah.
I think Grandpa's probably better.
Yeah.
But, no, man. I'm just glad to get to sit down with you and just catch up, man.
Yeah, man.
This is...
Life's gotten crazy. Not just this year. I mean, just as we've grown up and gotten families and, started making our way and other stuff and having wives and kids, real life seeps into your fantasies and your dreams. Right. Yeah.
It's crazy. But I don't want to embarrass myself on camera, but I literally thought we were just going to sit here with an iPhone, and there's just so much stuff. I can't tell. It's like, oh my gosh. Hey, I want to sit down and record a chat with you for the website. Okay, cool, man. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
This is awesome stuff, dude. I'm impressed. This is cool.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for sitting. I mean, we're buddies. We've been friends for a long time. We used to do this kind of thing all the time, but I appreciate you letting me come in and taking the time to sit down with me to do this.
No, I appreciate it. I saw some of the other episodes online, and I will do my best not to get misty and embarrass myself.
Well, I will do my best to make sure you get misty and
you're doing good.
Get embarrassed.
You're keeping it energized and hammed up, so I think I'll be all right.
Yeah. Oh man. So for everybody who doesn't know, Rob Miller, Rip Mystic. You're kind of where this all started, like really. When I was away at college for 1 year, and on our spring break that year, I picked up a WOW magazine, World of Wrestling. It's not in print. It hasn't been in print for a long time. I doubt anybody but me even remembers it.
You're dating yourself.
But there was an article on Windy City Pro Wrestling in that magazine, and there was a wrestling school in Chicago. Yeah. And it was the first time I ever thought you can go to a school for this, you can learn how to do this thing like that. Oh, okay. And I definitely was thinking about that, and literally I came back from that trip, and my friend Scotty Cash called me and was like, "You'll never believe it, there's a wrestling school here in Springfield." And I was like, I can't believe it. Yeah. There's a wrestling school in Springfield?
Yeah.
And it was your wrestling school. And that you had started.
It was our wrestling school.
Okay.
The problem with getting all the credit is you get all the blame, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Yeah, I'd love to take credit for everything, but the fact of the matter is we had a lot of good people in the right places at the right time. And when you look back at everything, like, good Lord, we had some bad luck, but we were way luckier than we probably should have been a lot of times.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was our wrestling school.
Yeah.
And it was, I don't even know if it was the first year. It was just all of us trying to figure out what we were going to do.
Right.
But no, I remember you coming in and watching shows.
Yeah.
And that was
my first. I remember coming in and watching because you guys were doing like Saturday show for friends and family practice shows,
right.
Basically.
Yeah, just screwing around.
Yeah. And I remember coming in and watching Scotty and some other people that I knew do those, waiting for the school year to end so I could come home and start myself. Mm-hmm. My first memory interacting with you outside of that, like as a trainee, like I remember coming in. I'd been there a couple times and you weren't there, and I came in one night and you were actually running a training, and I came in and you looked at me and you were like, "You here to train?" I was like, "Yeah," and you were like, "All right, 50 push-ups, 50 sit-ups, 50 squats, and then get in the ring."
Okay, sounds about right.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay. Because the first couple times we hadn't done any of it. It was just kind of, I mean, I had learned stuff, but there was no, whoever was running, there wasn't really. It was just kind of come in and like, okay, well, let's take some bumps. Here's how we do this move. Let's practice this kind of thing. So like, there hadn't been any structure. I wasn't
because there wasn't any structure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and any of the guys will probably go back and they'll say the same thing. We had this great idea, and not one of us had any idea how to start it. Am I not?
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just.
Yeah. So it was a mess.
Yeah.
At least the first 6 months. I mean, the lease was a mess. The landlord was a mess. The money was a mess. Yeah. Everything was a mess. But
well, we'll get into that before
right.
we get running on that. I know I took us a little early, but I want to bounce back because I want to know where wrestling started for you. When were you the fan your whole life? Did you watch it with your grandma? Everybody's got their own. How'd you get into wrestling originally?
I thought we weren't going to get misty. Well, I'll make it sound as happy as possible. It's
okay.
Really sad, though. I mean, I remember watching wrestling on Showtime, I believe it was.
Okay.
And the first match I remember is probably Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Jake the Snake Roberts.
Okay.
And I don't even remember what event it was that Showtime was, but I remember looking at it, and as a lot of people probably know, I grew up with an alcoholic father who was pretty absentee, and I wasn't into baseball, football, any of that other stuff.
Yeah.
Wrestling was real easy to understand, though.
Yeah.
There's two people, they're mad, they're trying to beat each other up.
Right.
Pretty simple.
Simple.
And I knew as a youngster, I think probably 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there, I knew that most of it, I knew it was worked. But that's what made it more interesting to me, because to try to do something that looks so real but clearly isn't.
Yeah.
I think there's a talent there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what attracted me to it. And just physically, I've never been good at anything else but bouncing around like a rubber ping pong ball.
Yeah.
But gymnastics and things of that nature. So anything you do well, you're going to gravitate to
right.
at a young age.
Yeah.
So that's where it started with me. Is probably every single kid in my backyard fed, because we knew we were the best backyard fed, of course.
Yeah.
And we were the only one in the country that was smart enough to do a backyard fed.
Right.
Nobody else had a backyard fed but us.
Yeah.
And we knew how to do that. Well, anyway, you get good friends, but I bet all of us were probably single, or not single, but we had single parents.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. And I don't want to go down sad memory lanes, but yeah, for all of us, that was our thing. Wrestling was our life. Every day after school, every day in the summertime, every day on break, unless there was a solid sheet of ice and snow on the ground, you were somewhere wrestling.
Yeah. That's
just how it was back then. That's how it started.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So when did it make the transition? What made you decide to do it? How did you find out? I talked about me finding the article in the magazine and being like, oh, this is a thing I can do?
Yeah.
Like, this is a thing you can learn to do? How'd you make that leap?
100%. It was a plan after the service. My plan was to do either 3 or 5 years in the service, and you probably remember my buddy Josh from Arizona.
Yep.
Not that everybody behind the camera will. But
it's all right.
Our plan was for when I got out of the service to go to wrestling school, and we had narrowed it down to 2 or 3, and I do not remember what the names of them are. One of them was the Monster Factory, though. I do remember that.
Okay,
and one of them was... I don't remember if Windy City was one of them or not.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, it seems like it should have been because they were close. But there was a lot of other places in the country at that time that offered one price. They had barrack-style living.
Oh, okay.
So, and even some programs at the time were offering meals and the whole thing in one price.
Yeah.
So, but when I got out of the Army, the bug had unbitten Josh in a way. He just physically, it just wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
It's one thing to do it in the backyard. It's another thing to actually do it in the ring.
Yeah.
And he didn't transition well. He just couldn't. So I was stuck coming home out of the military, really wanting to go by myself because, I mean, it's a roll of the dice no matter what.
Right.
But when you do it, I'd just gotten done doing the Army. It's like, do I really want to go back to another school and beat myself up and blah, blah. And then I met Justin Jones.
Okay.
And then...
How did you meet Justin Jones? I don't know if I've ever heard that story.
There's no story. I can't remember when the first time we met, though, but I know I was very inebriated. And I do not know if he was, but I have two memories of Justin. One's at a Perkins, and I can't remember if he was with me at the time or if that's where I met him because of the inebriation. But I had let the whole restaurant know how big I could crap. And he had been there with...
this big.
Yeah, he had been there with another mutual friend named Brent, who I'm sure you've met in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And Brent let me know that his was twice as big. Now, if that wasn't the first time, the other first time would have just been at the Asylum, I think. It was like a rock coffee house back in the day. It was a bar for people that couldn't go to bars.
Remember the Asylum?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it, but honestly, I'd go there and eat 2 bags of popcorn, drink 3 cups of coffee, and fall asleep on Steve's couch.
Yeah.
That's what I did out there. I'd work the door if he didn't have anybody, and I got free popcorn out of the deal, so it was nice.
Good deal.
But Justin and some of his buddies would come here all because the music scene then, the kind of stuff he liked.
Right.
I mean, the underground thing was real. It was a lot bigger back then. That's the only thing you could get people in Springfield to do. Seem to go to grunge music stuff. But he came into the Asylum one day, and I don't even remember how we started talking about wrestling. But he mentioned, "Well, I've been talking to these guys from LWF in Chicago, and they've invited me down. You want to go?" And I said, "Yep, sure do."
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
And it was gross, and it was nasty. And people probably heard Justin tell this story, but the first hotel we stayed in had no phone, and the lady asked us how many hours we wanted it. And I am not making that up. And keep in mind, I did at this time because I was still in the service when this happened. I was just doing National Guard, but I've already been quite a few places, and I'd never had an experience like that before. Like, I mean, I've seen that on TV.
Yeah.
Like, how long you want the room? But now it's like, no, we're just here. What do you say to something like that? Like, no, we're just here to wrestle.
We're here overnight.
Yeah. But yeah, we go in. There's no phone. I'm like, what in the heck? But I mean, that was our first introduction to a wrestling education was the LWF in Chicago. I don't even know if they're still running yet. I've heard
I don't
know.
There might be I have no idea. There might be a promotion with those initials, but I know it's not those guys, the same guys. Because that was the LWF was the backyard fed that CM Punk had started at when they had grown into running real wrestling, right?
Yeah, by the time
I mean, he was gone by the time. I know.
No, he was there.
Oh, he was there.
Yeah, we had quite a few. I mean, he'd never remember us now, but yeah, he was there. He wrestled a guy named Charcoal at my first show that I saw them.
Okay,
it was it False Count Anywhere or just a hardcore match? I don't know. They did a sunset flip powerbomb finish in that match. I don't know why I remember that.
No,
but I mean, back then
because it was one of your first things.
Well, back then I enjoyed watching Punk.
Yeah,
and it's not like I want him to die now or anything. But
right.
Back then he was still the hungry Punk.
Yeah.
And everybody.
When he loved wrestling.
Yeah. He himself has said that was when wrestling was cool.
Right.
You're right. That's when it was cool. So. But so of course I was just immediately hooked. Justin too. I mean, he was a little bit younger than I was, so it probably bit him even harder. They trained us what they knew. They beat the crap out of us. We'd go up there. I don't even remember how many times we were able to go up there before we started talking about we should do this in Springfield. Mm-hmm. Now Justin may have been talking with, and I don't remember anybody's last name, so you'll have to.
We don't need last names.
Yeah, Jimmy, which was one of the other 7 owners, along with Punk up there. And it might have been 9 too, by the way. I'm wrong with the math, but I mean that's how all those feds were. Though.
Right.
They had 15 guys got together, bought a ring, and started running it.
Yeah.
And, you know,
that's how indie wrestling starts.
But you know what? All joking aside, what it did do though was convince Justin and I that we could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And not to sound, you know, but I mean, okay, this can be done.
Yeah.
This can be done, and we can figure it out. And you know, and Justin's, I think it was Justin's idea because he kept reaching out. But he would be the one to try to bring the guys to us.
Okay.
To do the clinics. Like, so all that Windy City stuff, and now the Pat Tanaka thing and all that other stuff might have been some Brady stuff. I don't know. They all work together.
Let's establish a little bit. So you guys decide you can do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And you order up the ring.
Kind of. That took a while.
That took a while?
It wasn't as easy as it is now. Like, there was, I still don't like ordering crap off the net.
Right.
I still don't like it.
Right.
I can't see it. I can't touch it. I can't experience. I think the first ring we bought, I won't, because I can't remember names anyway, but was a guy who had a decent name in the business, and he gave us what we paid for, but we ended up doing a lot of stuff to it, as you know.
Yeah.
Welding and new mats and new canvases and
a lot of maintenance, a lot of improvements.
Yeah, the whole point was it was unorganized because we didn't know what we were doing.
Right.
We thought we'd buy a ring and then people would want to pay to watch us wrestle, and that just wasn't
not
the case.
The way it works.
No. And you would think at the time, you know, I was in college at the time, some of this time, anyway, off and on, and going to business classes and getting good grades in those classes. You would think it might have dawned on me to use some of that knowledge that I had gotten to run in the gym, but that didn't happen. And well, you saw it. You know, it was an old theater. We had a ring. We had mats everywhere. We tried to set up a workout thing. It just did not get taken care of. It was all junk. You know, but it was a start.
Yeah.
So. And it was, I mean, we didn't care. We loved the wrestling.
Right.
And we'll get more on that later, but that's really the point, was we loved the wrestling.
Yeah. So, so once we get to, so if you finally figure out you get the ring ordered, and we get running. Mm-hmm. And we were in that old theater for a couple months, and that's where we were doing some of the clinics. Mm-hmm. We had some. We were able to get some. So you're saying it was Justin who was, you know, bringing people in. I remember some people coming in. Oh gosh, I can't remember the Windy City guy's name now.
I can't. I only remember
Mark Madden.
Yeah, I remember Nick Brunswick. I don't think it's Mark Madden. I think it's
no, that's not.
That's the guy off of
not.
WCW.
Yeah, that's
you love getting old, don't you? Don't you love getting old, dude?
Yep.
I remember Nick Brunswick because he had the bowling gimmick, but
okay.
I do not remember what. And the other guy was the big one. I mean, he was a TV looking dude.
From Windy City.
Yeah. Big old dude.
That was what was his name?
He was the real nice one. But Stone Mason.
Stone Mason.
Yeah. Real nice guy.
Who was the? So I'm trying to think of the guy actually from Gateway. Who came up from Gateway? Pete Madden.
Pete Madden came up.
Was the guy who came up from Gateway.
He ran around. Didn't he run around with all them guys like Too Tough Tony and? I don't know. I hate guys that name drop, but I'm trying to remember.
Well, I mean, we're not name dropping. We're just remembering.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember who did what.
Yep.
But I think that's right.
Yeah.
I think that. I feel like Justin did. Now I know we'll probably talk about Brady later, but Brady had come along maybe 5-6 months down the road, and he knew he had a lot of contacts as well.
He was the Windy City contact, wasn't he? Didn't Pete Madden come in? Didn't Brady bring Pete Madden in?
Windy City. Let's. Windy City contacted us through Justin.
Oh, okay.
They actually came and spied on us. Do you not remember this?
Mm-mm.
Oh, this was before you came. Mm-hmm. They came down to Stone Mason, Nick Brunswick, and some other chode, and I'll call you all chodes because you did this, and you know you did. You come into a class acting like students. And then. I believe it was Nick who fessed up. He called Justin a week or two later, said they were actually looking for guys for their big show, for this big giant battle royal, and they were interested in Justin, Tom, a couple other guys for the show. So it was cool. It ended up being cool, but and Brady had come along either right at that time or right after that.
Okay, so Brady became one of the owners. So at the time, let's just real quick. At the time, the owners were you and Jason,
and another Jason, and a John.
And a John.
And a Justin.
And a Justin.
And there may have been others. There may have been others, dude.
Those are the 5 I remember when I showed up.
That might be right.
Okay.
I feel like Luke was involved in there somewhere.
So I remember, I thought Luke was an owner for a long time, But then, like, eventually, I think I had said something about him being an owner one time, and he corrected me. He was like, well, I'm not an owner. I'm just, they trust me to open the gym and stuff sometimes.
Is that where
like,
the Jim Ross comment came from? Where Luke was the Jim Ross of the gym? Something like that is pouring into my head. He'll probably piss himself if he watches this, but I think that's what that was.
I don't remember that.
I do believe there was originally 5, and Brady had come on as number 6 shortly, I don't know, 6 months in, maybe not even that long. I honestly don't remember, and I don't remember how we met him either.
Yeah,
I think he just came in one day, or maybe Justin met him. I'm so old. Gosh, man. But yeah, so 5, 6 guys now. Yep. None of them, all of them knowing a little bit. None of them knowing what the hell.
Right.
But yeah, that's basically how we bumped through the first year, I think.
Yeah, a lot of bumps.
Yes.
Learned everything the hard way. Yeah. I came in. I think I was about 6 months late to the party, and I remember a lot of bumps along the way. Mm-hmm. So we know that Justin's reached out. We've talked about reached out, working on bringing people in. We kind of talked about. You saw it as like, well, once we have this ring, obviously people will come pay to let us,
obviously,
watch us play, right?
Obviously they will.
What at the time though? What was your actual vision for the company? What did you like? What were you getting into this expecting, thinking, hoping?
Me personally, I said it 10 years ago. I'll say it again. I just wanted a fun backyard fit, a glorified backyard fit.
Yeah.
And for 2 reasons. Number one, that's when it was the most fun. But also, if we continue to have the most fun, the money will take care of itself. Was what I thought.
Yeah.
Was what I believed. And I think maybe in a mature way that can happen. But we were not all mature at that point. But I think that's what, wrestling. I love wrestling. Mm-hmm. I could have been happy for the rest of my life if we did a show every Saturday for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
In some way, shape, or fashion. I think that's what I really wanted. Now, whether or not the world was ready for that or wanted that is another story. Right. I don't know what they want out of wrestling nowadays, but I'm sure we'll get to that conversation.
You or me,
we'll get there. It's too early for that.
So I mentioned earlier, you're the father, the grandfather. We all kind of look at you that way. And you mentioned there's a bunch of dudes, like you're the one go. If I take all the credit, I have to take all the blame. So let's make sure and spread it around. But you cannot dispute that you were the main one in a leadership position.
Yeah.
During that whole the first 5 years probably.
Yep.
And we grew constantly, right? We grew from ups and downs and bumps, but always steady progress from a hole in the wall, one step above a backyard fed basically, where we're working out during the week and having practice matches on Saturdays, and sometimes maybe people show up, friends and family stuff. 2, where we're renting buildings and we've all got tights and boots and we're doing it for real as we can.
Yep.
So what I want to ask is, where did it become, one, if that was not your vision, how did it get there? Or like, where did you change your, where did you kind of be like, okay, well, this is the direction, let's keep moving. Mm-hmm. Like what was going on with your head for that?
Really, I think I've gone on record before saying is maybe as much as I pushed New Midwest forward, I held it back too, because I was always paranoid someone was going to get hurt, or we were going to overstep our britches or bite off more than we could chew before we were ready. Because I'd seen that happen, in all kinds of things. But because I don't know a better way to put it, because I'm a little trigger shy, I didn't want to make that jump. I was happy doing what we were doing. People were already coming to the Stockyard shows every Saturday.
Yeah.
We were filling that place. The problem is we were only charging donations.
Right.
And as much as, everyone who had any kind of financial stake in that thing, we all had an opinion. We all had a direction money needed to go, but there wasn't enough money coming in to take care of it. Yeah. And if we were going to grow, we were either going to have to just be happy with what we had or trim the fat, one of the two. Or we were forced into the situation with the close down anyway, but we'll get to that. But if that forced us to grow.
Yeah. But
with the Stockyard, if we could have just stayed at Stockyard and figured out a way to get our own little license for our own little snacks and all that, I would have loved to have just built up Stockyard to something that would have been just a little.
So Stockyard. So let me give it a little real quick.
Yeah,
so Stockyard, we had moved. So we started off in this old abandoned theater with the ring at the bottom of the auditorium.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
We moved into a warehouse on Stockyard Road. That's why we call it Stockyard.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just a old warehouse with big bay doors on either side. Tall ceilings, so we had room to do everything.
Yep.
But I mean, that place was packed. We never had chairs or anything in there. We had crash pads, and people would sit on some benches. We had made some benches and stuff.
We got couches up. We had couches. People would bring their recliners. I mean, lawn chairs.
They had lawn chairs and stuff. And we say we would pack that place. We probably packed that place with 60 at our big shows.
That would have been your average, but once QLZ got involved, we had 200 people in that building, dude.
Did we? Okay.
Ray Lytle showed up for that rather charming thing. And
I remember that.
There was 200 people at that building, dude, because we had to open the bay doors and the whole bit. I mean, that's what started getting us more attention than we needed, I think. But
yeah, well, that definitely was the start of it.
All of our pay-per-views or big events, they always pulled triple digits. Then that was before we even went legit.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that was before I was keeping track. I'm just thinking back on the size of that,
60, 80, not in summertime was probably about right. And and it was all girlfriends, family, friends, but they were loud as hell. Yeah. So
it was a lot of fun. And we were all young.
We were young and hungry, and we wanted the attention, and the internet was becoming a thing. So let's record everything and. If there's one thing I wish I knew better was the internet back then.
We've been able to jump ahead.
Yeah, because I mean, look at everything we can do today. Look at this. I mean, good Lord, dude. I don't know, but yeah, that's
for sure.
Those are good. The Stockyard was probably my favorite time. But yeah, when we had the trouble with the city, an article had come out.
Yeah, so we did the article in the Illinois Times.
Yeah,
and there was a guy blowing fire on the article, and we had a guy. I say that like sometimes I present the idea like, oh, we didn't really have to do it. We definitely had a dude that blew fire, but they put that on the cover, and then fire marshal showed up the next week, and the building people came in and were upset the next week, and in very short order we were out of that building.
There's one key component to this story that got missed, though. It's where I got asked by the reporter what the trash cans were for. And me just thinking he was joking because I assumed he'd seen a hardcore match before with cheap-looking trash cans. I told him that the heater didn't work and we burned the barrels to make heat for the building, and he printed it.
And that made it in the
that's
article.
What got the fire marshal
there
out
you
there.
Go.
And it turns out we weren't in trouble, but just for the record, the landlord had 23 violations, and that's why we weren't in that building anymore.
Right.
I loved that. Was something else that was a growing theme about starting your own Fed. You're always going to get hosed. It's never going to be your fault, but you're always going to take the brunt of it.
Yeah.
And I made a joke. One of my old gymnastics coaches, because he's still running his gym. I said the only thing I ever did 15 years in wrestling was make landlords money. And that's
for real.
That is the truth.
For real.
It. And while we're going down memory lane, I wish 43-year-old me would have told 22-year-old me, every dime that you guys just pulled, don't buy a ring, buy a building first. And we'd have been set. We'd all been set. Yeah. We'd be having a much different conversation.
Right.
But that's just how it is, man.
Yep. So we bounce out of Stockyard. A lot of great memories on Stockyard. And that was really, I feel like that was really our adolescence. We
talked about, and I want to reiterate, that there was a lot of people involved in this. One of the things that happened during Stockyard was that Brady had made some contacts with Heartland. Now, I don't think everything that came out of Heartland was a great deal, but some of the stuff that did come out of Heartland that a great deal were clinics with Les Thatcher, clinics with Shark Boy, clinics with Joe Lamb, Nigel McGuinness, working with those guys and getting for them to come down and me having the opportunity to go up there with those guys and learn how they work and how their operation. I mean, it was not, getting to sit down with Jim Cornette, Les Thatcher, being at a show and on a show where Big Show and Mark Henry are there, and you're talking to guys who have made tons of money in the business.
Yeah.
It's a big eye-opening thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a lot of good things that happened at Stockyard, too. But
Yeah.
once we got shut down, it was either stop playing wrestler or graduate and make the move.
Yeah.
We didn't have any choice at that point.
Yep.
Because there wasn't going to be the money anymore.
Right. And that's kind of the point I was coming to was like, you know, if that was our high school, because there was a lot and we learned a lot. And that was really, I also feel like we kind of solidified a core roster there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like while we were at Stockyard, that's where we kind of built the foundation and like had solidified you, me, Justin. Danny was there by then. Spencer Powers, you know, John had come back by then. Duvall, you know what I mean? Like all the guys that had been there. Like I mean, all the guys that had been there and the owners and stuff were there. But then all the core students, the core next rung of guys, had come in, and we were all pretty tight by then.
Yeah, because of Stockyard Road. By the time we did get around to the first show at Soccer World, we had 20 guys?
Yeah, at least.
30 guys? I don't know how many guys. It seemed, that first show was ridiculously long.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to say 30 guys, but maybe it was only 20. Anyway, we had at least 20 dudes who knew how to get the most out of whatever it was they had.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the key.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we all wanted to do it. We wanted to prove we could do it. We were excited. Yeah. We were hungry, and now here we go. We got Soccer World, and we're doing it. We're not, no excuses. We're doing it. And we're like, holy shit, here it is. So, but I'm glad we did, because you and I sat down and booked that first show, and I said it'd have been another year if it had been up to me. We'd have still waited another year. Yeah. And I think you told me that. I said if I leave it up to you, we'll wait a whole other year. And I'm like, they're starting to come to memory now. It's like, you're right. Let's book a show.
Yep, let's do it.
And that's what happened. I'm so glad we did.
Yeah,
I'm so glad we did.
It was the right time.
Mm-hmm.
It was the right time. We made the right moves. Over 600 people at that first Soccer World show?
It was at least 5. I can't remember if it was 6 or not.
It was a lot.
We made so much money at that show. We got an argument of where we're supposed to go.
Right.
Yeah, which was an argument I shouldn't have even been involved in, but I was. But of course, some of us had borrowed money from our girlfriends to get it going, and some of us had taken money out of our wallets, and so of course there was going to be that argument. And,
and there's always going to be that argument anyway.
Yeah, we were not very intelligent on the business end of some of this, but.
I mean, we were young, you know. We didn't know anything.
That's
true. Like at 20 years old, in our 20s, I don't think I was even drinking yet. I don't think I was old enough to drink at that time.
Well, I'm pretty sure we were anyway.
But. Well, that's not the point. I'm not saying we weren't drinking. I'm just saying I don't even think I was 21 yet.
Regardless, the money. I don't know. We're
never going to handle it well. This is what I'm coming to. When in your 20s, you think you know everything and you know nothing.
Right. Yeah. But we got to where we were going, and we started doing the shows, and they ran smooth.
It was a pretty smooth uphill trajectory.
It was. I mean, when I think about what we could have ran into, especially like litigation wise, now it's different. Now you got to remember, like nowadays, everybody has a cause.
Mm-hmm.
Now. Everybody does, you know. So, but back then, you know. That kind of thing happened a lot. Someone will get hurt, someone will get sued, you know, and so it's just like, well, you know, it wasn't like now where nobody even takes it seriously. Like, well, right. I don't have anything anyway, so screw you.
You're right.
But I'm really glad that Soccer World show. I don't know, it was 4 hours long. I don't know, it was insane.
It was long. It was big. It was long.
And we destroyed a cake.
We hated that so much. The clown show in the middle because you wouldn't say no to the kid who wanted to be the Swedish chef character.
Well, I learned. I'm glad I could learn that lesson and make a crowd suffer for it, though.
Yeah, well, yeah. If you're gonna learn that lesson the hard way, we couldn't have learned it any harder than that.
Hey, we could go. We're gonna go down lessons we all should have learned, because I got a list for everyone. Trust me.
Yeah?
My list is long, too, but jeez. But, yeah, you're right about that. I don't know what the hell.
Well, we'll come back. We'll hit on that next week.
Okay.
So we run into now a pretty good run, probably 3 years from the first Soccer World show, which was 2000, to, I would say, we moved from Soccer World to the USA Sports Center.
Yeah.
And I would say the last USA Sports Center was the beginning of 2004.
Yeah, I think so.
So I would say
maybe 2003. I don't know, because we'll get to probably my first back injury, but
yeah.
It was that was when we were already at the USA, or was it the Sports Center?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when the shows were really hitting stride, man.
Right.
I mean, they just good show after good show after good show after. I mean, they just kept getting better.
Good crowd after good crowd after good crowd. Yeah,
that was better than you ever could have imagined.
Yeah,
I mean, especially for small town boys. From
it felt like we were doing something real, and we were, you know, but it felt like we were doing something real and on the road to something a lot bigger. Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah, well, it was done right, but it was done our way.
Yes.
I think. Maybe a little too slow, but we did it our way.
Yeah.
And, so there wasn't anybody taking all the credit for everything we did.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you had people helping work out matches. You had guys that were fantastic in the ring. You had guys that were fantastic actors. You had guys that could build crazy stuff. You know, we did that coffin gimmick with Kid Chaos. That thing was awesome, man. I mean, it's like back then especially, you never saw the kind of cool stuff at indie shows that we would do. The lighting, the music.
Yep.
I mean, our shows
the Try-and-Tron.
Yeah, our Try-and-Tron. I mean, we were trying to follow.
Yeah.
We were trying to give everyone a television experience the best we could, and
Yep.
we would get the most out of the least, and it showed in our attendance, and it showed in our shows.
I think it did.
So, I mean, but yeah, the Soccer World, and then right off to the USA Sports Center, those shows were fantastic, man. I mean, that was just great stuff. Ugh. Man, I could watch that forever.
Yeah, for sure. But during that run, it's where you run into your first big hurdle, your big stumbling block, right? The back injury that's gonna.
I didn't know if a back injury or a girl was coming up. I didn't know which. They're both dangerous.
They are both dangerous.
But yeah, that's when I had the first real bad one. Like
yeah.
I hurt my back before plenty of times.
Yeah. Well, I know your back wasn't 100% even when we started.
No, but I would blow a disc out, and 3 days later I'd be fine. I mean, it never occurred to me that it could get worse.
Yeah.
And then I mean, that was an injury that took me out 1 solid year.
I was gonna say.
And it was just one of those things where I was at work one day and it was a new job, little slip, and.
Yep.
So, but it forced me to do some things behind the scenes, and that went well. In some areas, not so much in others, but it did force me to do other things. Which
take a step back and see it from a bigger perspective, I think.
Yeah,
different perspective.
Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, that's the perspective that made me realize I didn't want to own anything to do with wrestling.
Yeah.
I mean, I really didn't. That was I mean, I had all kinds of girl problems and all kinds of other young man problems back then. But the fact of the matter was, I wanted to wrestle. I did not want to pay bills and figure out where the rent is and figure out what the percentage of the concession was on our. I didn't want to do any of that. I wanted to worry about my match or help other people wrestle. So I mean, that was a turning point for the gym and me. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Not this part of it.
Right.
And so. Now we're getting sad.
Now we're getting sad. We gotta handle the tough stuff.
All right, get sad then.
That's all right. So help me remember what was kind of the timeline for that. So when were you out, and then when did you come back?
It was right before.
Because to me, it seems like you were in and out from then on, like in and out all the time, and. You say you were out for a solid year. I believe you. I don't remember you being out for a solid year.
Yeah, that very first real bad injury, I was out for a solid year, and I had a bunch of false starts and stops after that. But if memory serves me correctly, and we'll have to go back and look, but it was right before the very first Alexis Holmeyer tournament. Like it was a month prior to that, or maybe even 6 weeks prior to that, because I blew a disc on a Saturday, the day of a show, and so we had to cancel my match. And then the Alexis Homeye tournament was the next month.
Yeah.
I remember. And then I was back in action. The very next Alexis Homeye tournament was my first match back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I wrestled you, and I wrestled Jake at that
Yep.
show. And Matt Boston. I met Boston at that show. So my first show back was 3 matches.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Which,
wow.
Which, looking back, it's like, really, dude? Really?
Well, yeah, you know, nah. If you're,
because
but we have been training. It wasn't your first time.
No,
back
but again,
in the ring,
you
know
look
what
back
I mean?
at it now at 43. When after we're done with this talk, I'm gonna be standing up like this for a half an hour. You think, hey, Einstein, maybe not 3 matches first time out. You know.
Yeah, I can see that.
But see, that's what New Midwest was. It was never supposed to be a money making machine. It was supposed to be all of us. We care so much. We want to do this so much.
Like, we love it.
Like all of our heroes did when they first got into it.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sure who we talked about earlier, CM Punk, like you said, it was cool back then.
It's cool, yeah.
So yeah, you want to get back to it because it's cool back then, and then you don't realize like I like to do it now, but I got a wife and kids and bills. And every time I fall, I'm out for 8 weeks, and but. Where were we? I forget. See, don't let me rabbit hole, dude.
Nah, dude, it's good.
All day long.
What do you think? That's the whole point of this, man.
Yeah.
I always laugh. I think it's funny when I do stuff like this, and people are like, "Oh, don't let me tell this," or I hear it, and I hear it so much on. I listen to a lot of Stone Cold's podcasts,
other podcasts,
and people are always like, "I don't know," like they start a story and then they kind of cut themselves off, and they're like, "I don't know if you got time for all this. I won't bore you with the details." And Stone Cold's always like, "This is a podcast, son. We're just here to tell old stories. That's the whole point of the thing." I feel that every time I'm like, Rob.
Well,
we're here to go down rabbit holes.
Some of us that have soon-to-be teenage daughters have been told "Oh, father" quite a few times the past couple of months.
Well,
Dad,
this an "Oh, Dad" free.
I keep looking at it. There's no kids here to shut me up. Well, as long as you keep reminding me what subject we're on, then we'll be good. So where were we? We
were talking about your back injury.
Yeah.
So now you're back from the back injury.
Yeah, we did the Alexis Homeye tournament, the second one.
Yep.
Had some good matches with you, Jake, and Matt at that. That was probably my favorite time of wrestling.
Yeah.
When I first come back, because I had decided I probably didn't want to own it anymore, but I hadn't sold anything, and we were just trying to get everything back on track. For me, on a personal level, and I don't know how many guys were involved in this, and how many because you were at that point, you were our main heel, and I believe if you didn't have the belt then, you were always in line to be getting it because we used your heat to build somebody up to kick your butt.
Yep.
And so I don't know how much booking you were involved in then, but it became real clear real quick that I was just going to have to be less important because you can never count on me.
Right.
And but I was okay with that because I still wanted to have fun. But it made owning it even harder.
Yeah.
Because and it's a shitty way of looking at it sometimes, but when you're 26, 27, 28, and you're pouring a lot of money into something and your back hurts and, other people are doing it too, but it's like, hey, I like to be important, It's like, maybe I'm not that important. Maybe it's just time to just,
Yeah.
So there was a lot of that going on, because the truth is a lot of people made that place run.
Yeah.
And a lot of people put time, money, tears, the whole bit, regardless of what happened to our relationships before, during, or afterwards.
Right.
We were all there to try, when it was working the best, we all had the same goal.
Yeah.
And it was to stick it up somebody's butt.
Yep. And everybody was good at, the thing I've always thought back then, everybody was good at sort of finding their place to contribute.
Yep.
We get mad, back then everybody had to set up and tear down the ring, set up and tear down chairs, all that stuff, and we expected everybody to help. Mm-hmm. And we're all 20-something, a lot of us, fat kids growing up, whatever. We didn't like to do a lot of work. Nobody wants to do that work. Mm-hmm. And we would have the thing where people were like wander. We rarely did we have people wander off and like avoid the work. They would wander off and find something
else to do.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And so, like, there was still something getting done. And it kind of happened that way on, like, every level, people who were training, some of them, if they didn't like training, they wander off and, spend a little more time in the gym. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or, take the lead here, or that, you know what I mean? So
yeah, there was a lot of, before everybody was kind of doing their thing where they were supposed to, there was a lot of trying to find their spot.
Right.
The other thing with the setup and teardown, we were always getting hosed too. I mean, we would spend so much money on these buildings, and then these landlords would do something stupid.
Yeah.
You know, like now not only do we have to move the ring every month 20 feet, but now we got to step over a giant tumble track when we do it. It's like, it never got easier. It was all we ever wanted was something like Stockyard, where you show up, you train, you show up, you do shows. You don't ever have to mess with that.
Just always
ring.
set up, and
then and I remember later on down the line,
that's the dream.
The warehouse got there, and then you could, at least then people were wheeling the sucker. But good Lord, I never blame guys for not wanting to do that crap. I hated moving that ring 20 feet.
It sucks.
20 freaking feet, dude. Like, you can't give us the gym. Like, what?
No, they had to not have basketball in there.
Dude. Anyway, I could been for that for a long time. But I mean, but we started policing each other. And it became one of those things where I think the success was because everybody stayed in their wheelhouse, or at least tried to. And anytime anybody tried to step out a little bit, we all kind of good. I mean, shoot, Justin and I used to bigger like a married couple. I remember, but it kept the doors open at least. I mean, it was better than the alternative because we've already had that roll of dice quite a few times, and I was sick of dealing with that too. So get these shows rocking and rolling.
It was good.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is your next? So we get to the end of the USA Sports Center, and things are kind of that building that landlord has issues with his neighbors, and we're out because of his issues. Once again, not us. Yeah. We're out. Yeah, we end up bouncing around for a little while. We did shows at the for a while we were still training at the USA Sports Center, but we didn't have shows there.
We had to do shows.
So we did shows at the America Center, which was a short little bingo. The ceiling was short. It was a little bingo hall. It was not ideal for wrestling shows.
They weren't, but they were still great shows. They were fantastic. Yep. People even found a way to use the ceiling once in a while to be goofy, which was fun. But those. I mean.
So what was your next big milestone?
My next big milestone. By that time, I had another injury, and I had sold the gym during that time. By the time the gym moved from Stockyard Road, or not Stockyard, but from the America Center to, or not the.
The USA Sports Center.
By the time they had moved, by the time they were at the USA Sports Center and doing shows at the American Center, that was at the time I sold.
Okay.
And for me personally, I know it affected the gym a lot, but for me personally, after having another injury, that's when I had the most fun wrestling.
Okay.
Because with all the drama, family drama that ended up happening, or the friendship drama, any of the drama that ended up happening after that, that's when I traveled the most. That's when I met the most people. That's when I got to work face and heel more.
Yeah.
I actually learned more because at that point I got to go places and I didn't have to be the one in charge anymore. I could play around with my match. I could try different things with different people. And I didn't have to just get a cookie cutter match, or I didn't feel like I had to have a cookie cutter match. Because, well, when you're in our kind of group, there was probably 2 or 3 guys that I trusted the most to get in the ring with and have a good match without talking about it or just know the ending. Yeah. And one of those guys I always got hurt with, and that was Chad, without fail. We always ended up hurting each other. So, that left you and Justin, basically, and maybe a couple other guys. But, with all this rehearsing and everything, I would feel obligated. I have to have a great match, so if I'm going to work so-and-so, and it's not somebody I particularly enjoy working with, I need to get this down pat. I didn't feel that pressure anymore because I wasn't going to be in there with anybody good.
Right.
And I don't mean that meanly, but that my job with, like, when I go to New Breed or Great American Wrestling, any of these other guys that I would go and hang out with and wrestle with, I'm putting their dudes over.
Right.
So I just need to make their guy look good. That's easy.
Well, it's a different kind of thing. I experienced it. For me, what I experienced was when I left New Midwest. I felt more agency to take charge when I was out there, and a little less agency to have to. Well, at New Midwest, like, not only was I working with my friends and guys that I worked with all the time, it was kind of like you know, I see them all the time. So, like, if I don't, I got to let them do what they want. We got to, like, I guess there's got to be a little more give and take, which sounds bad. You know what I mean? But, you know, but it was kind of like, and it was also, and it was also like, you know, I got to have a great match because I know Rob's going to have a great match, and I know Chad's going to have a great match, and I know that Steve will be disappointed with me until next month if I don't. When we go somewhere else, it's just like I may never see this dude again. Right. I'm gonna go have this match with him. I'm gonna have fun. There's no stakes here. Okay. There's just, you know, that was my. That seems like what you're kind of describing a little bit.
And this will sound wrong, but I'm just gonna say it. After the first couple of weeks and months of doing this, it then turned into I am going to be the best match on this card because there is a lot of garbage out here.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that mean. It's just the way it is. I mean, look in the mirror. You know whether or not you're worth the price of a ticket or not. I'm not going to say it.
Right.
And I'm not going to say anything else about it.
Yeah.
And so...
You knew you were worth the price of a ticket.
When you're going
There's nothing wrong with that.
When you're going there and you're going to do your thing, and bada bing, bada boom, you're done.
Right.
You know, it was a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point, though, where people would notice that, and you weren't just a name they kept hearing. Yeah. It was somebody that wanted to have an experience with you and a conversation with you. And that's where you actually start building these reputations and you start building these relationships. And then there's more than one guy on the card that's worth the price of a ticket. Yeah. That's how that works.
Yes.
And it was, I enjoyed that part of it. It's a lot less stressful. You get banged up a lot more, and that sucks.
Right.
A lot. but man, I mean, I had some of the greatest experiences just doing that once, twice, 3 times a month, you know, not at New Midwest, you know, just anywhere I could. And then when I finally got back around to coming back around to New Midwest, I was able to do a little bit of both before my back got crappy, and that was cool too. But I think I was a lot like you when you started doing it, because I think I started traveling more later after you did. Mm-hmm. You were built.
I was kind of the first one that got out there and did that.
That was still how you made it back then.
Yeah.
Or that's what we thought.
That's what we thought.
The internet and everything was changing, but you were built for that. You loved that. I mean, you couldn't wait to get. Remember that first hotel? I mean, I talk about Justin and I's hotel, but I mean, you were so excited on that little mall show. We were like, we're going down. You want to go with me? But I'm like, yeah, dude, this is great. We get down there, and that room is like, there's ramen everywhere. and I'm pretty sure it was Golden Grams on the curtain. And I'm like, what? And we just go back. You gave us a room that wasn't clean. And the guy just looked at us like, nope, that's your room. It's like, no. We're not going to stay here, dude. Like, and the continental breakfast was a half a bagel and like a thing of Cheerios. Dude, no. You love that crap. You love those stories.
I was all the way in immediately.
That was twice. I was not sticking around for strike 3. No. If I went there, did my match, came back. No more hotels. I'm done with that bullshit. But you love that stuff.
I did.
And you when I'll never forget when we went down that first mall show in Festus. Dude.
Yeah.
Somewhere in Missouri or something. I don't remember where it was.
St. Clair, I think.
Whose group was that?
It was MPW.
Yeah, MPW.
Missouri Powerhouse.
Yeah, and I mean, it was just a great experience. I don't even know how old we were back then. 20. You were 20
or 21 maybe,
23. But I mean, we went down there, and of course I knew more than I thought, or I thought I knew more than I actually did, and, kind of made it a thing. But we had a good time, and we made good friends, and they actually come down and worked with us a couple times, and vice versa. What was that guy you used to hire from there? Christian Hayes. Yeah, him and he had a young lady. Trinity. Yeah,
yep.
We got I don't know how many matches we got out of them. Quite a few.
We worked with them a bunch. We worked with Chico Es Loco.
Yep,
a bunch came from them.
Eric Marks a few times, but he was from somewhere else, wasn't he?
Yeah, Eric Marks came from up north.
Did he pass? Did I hear he passed?
Maybe.
I don't want this.
I don't know. Yeah.
We'll look that up later.
Yeah.
Gosh. I don't know what got me off on the wrestling.
That's fine. No, that's. I mean, that's what we're.
But yeah, that was always more your thing. I always wanted the people to come to me.
Yeah.
Come to me and toot my horn. I don't want to go elsewhere and toot my horn. I want you to come and toot my horn for me. But But no, I mean, that I did get a good experience of that, and I enjoyed it all up until the time where the doctor bills just became a lot more than what the payoffs were,
right.
And that wrestling it even at then it started to take a little bit of a downturn, so places were struggling more than what normal. And then
it was not in the boom period anymore.
And there's dirty promoters everywhere you go anyway, so they're always going to try to stiff you for some kind of money.
Yeah, you just learn to live with that.
Yeah. Even when you're the promoter and the owner, you end up stiffing yourself.
You
stiff yourself.
No matter what.
Screw it,
no
man.
matter what, for sure.
Buy a building and learn. Jeez. God.
So, coming to the end, when did you decide? Because you're retired now, more or less.
Again.
Retired.
Yeah, I'm retired again.
Retired again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when did you feel like it was over?
Probably 2010. Every bump I took, but I still ended up wrestling until what 2013, 14.
At least.
I mean, dude, no. Here's the thing. I don't know. You and I have had this conversation 1,000 times. I've been to a million doctors. I've had a million problems, and the truth of the matter is, there just comes a point where I don't know if you've been keeping up on the Undertaker documentary series. I'm sure you have.
Not yet.
Oh, you haven't watched?
Yeah.
I have, and so I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But I mean,
spoiler alert.
Yes, not even a spoiler. But when you watch him in his last couple matches, trying to have that last good one, and you hear about the surgeries, and you hear about the concussions, and you hear about the problems, and you see the wife shedding the tears. The thing is, man, like, them guys got great doctors. Them guys got millions of dollars. For every Undertaker out there, man, there's like 1,000 of me's.
Yeah.
I can't even get the Department of Veteran Affairs telling me what's wrong with me half the time. I mean, it's like, are you bipolar? Do you got PTSD? Are you just sad? And then with the back, that's a whole nother thing. I'm on surgeon number 6 right now. So I mean, it just I know more about my back and my brain than most doctors do.
Yeah.
And the fact of the matter is, it just does whatever it wants. It's how much do I want to go through. You guys, I cannot tell you how awesome it was. Was it the November show, the anniversary show? I got to come and do that spot with you guys.
Yeah.
It was such a little blow off spot, and I know for a fact that's not the kind of match you wanted for November. Because November's always supposed to be a good month. It's supposed to be the special month for wrestling. And nothing against those guys, but everybody wants that great singles match where they're going over in a prime spot or getting a belt.
Yeah.
Everybody wants that spot on the big show.
Right.
Everybody does. So for 4 guys, not just one, but for 4 guys and a referee, just to blow that all the way off, just to have me come in and DDT half the planet. Like, I think that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
It really is. And the ring's nice. It's brand new. It feels soft. But the fact of the matter is, I don't know how many of those I got left.
Yeah.
I gimp around already. Sometimes I stand up straight. Sometimes I don't. It's just, nobody knows. I look like that Yoda off the Star Wars movies. I gimp around. Like, I was using a cane all last week. I'm just kind of caning around, and it's like I feel like I could drop it in a lightsaber fight and then just cane away again.
Pick it back up.
Yeah, but that's how I wasn't training after.
Maybe that should be your nigga. Maybe you need to come back again, and you can
rip Yoda.
You can cane out to the ring.
Yeah.
And then you drop the ring and have your match, and then you got to grab the cane and limp back to the back.
Yoda Mystic.
Yoda Mystic.
Yeah, Yoda Mystic. We'll do some new break stuff music and some Star Wars tunes. It'd be great. But I'd love to say I'm gonna get. We were practicing a couple before all the COVID crap happened.
Yeah.
I got in there, banged up my knee a little bit. My head was feeling weird, but I didn't take any head bumps. I'd love to get in there once, twice a year, 3 times a year. The trick is, I think for some of these older guys, you don't. I think if you're not continuing to bump, I think that's the problem.
Yeah.
If you're only going to bump once or twice a year, I think that's when you really start messing yourself up. Because anybody will tell you if they
let your body get out of the practice.
Yeah.
You let the callus wear off.
You have to have that.
Yeah.
Bump tab, bump callus, whatever people call it, you have to have that built up, or you start scrambling them eggs, man.
Right.
And, I'm not a doctor, so don't. Justin's going to blame me.
We're not prescribing anything.
Yes, I'm prescribing.
We're not diagnosing.
Yes, 60 bumps a day.
We're just
all of you. find a ring,
Perfect.
get in there and bump 60 times. But no, if you don't continue to use a muscle, it dies. And,
Right.
You know, if the Undertaker chooses to do that once a year, he's making enough money, he can take care of it. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, I don't have. They weren't paying me enough when I was getting hurt and wrestling full time. I don't definitely gonna make enough now.
No doubt.
But it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. It doesn't mean there aren't things I can and can't. You know, there's still things I can do that can entertain, that can still be helpful. I mean, creatively, there's a lot of things I like to. But just when that comes around,
Yeah.
You know, with COVID, I'm not a big fan of the way COVID has pushed wrestling. I'm hoping it gets back to normal and doesn't get worse.
Yeah. See,
maybe we're supposed to talk about that later. I don't know.
We'll talk about whatever we talk about when it comes up.
Okay. Yeah.
We don't need to have a big discussion on it.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that we're gonna get to see. I think the indies have a unique opportunity to grab wrestling back from the big names. I think the WWE and AEW and all the stuff they've done to try and continue making content have damaged their product.
I would agree.
In a way that I think it's going to take them a long time to come back from, especially if the indies are ready to jump in and say, look, we're still wrestling. But before we get too far,
go ahead.
I'm going to pull us back. I'm going to pull us back.
Pull it back.
So, we talked about all this. We talked about we covered your history.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about it? I need to know how you feel about it, Rip. Would you trade it? Would you change it? Was it worth it? How when you think about your whole run?
No, I don't think I changed anything. I am so glad that I chased that dream.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm still glad. Do I have regrets? Yeah, but like maybe the only regret is taking all that money I invested and going to an actual wrestling school instead. But then I wouldn't have all the friends I had, and I wouldn't have had all the experience I had. I don't have anything in my life now that's because of wrestling. Yeah. I think I've said on interviews before, I got a bike, got 2 cars, got a house, got a wife, 2 kids. None of it's from wrestling. But I'm part of the man I am today because of it. And I now know what to tell my kids. You know, it's like they got a chance to experience me wrestling. They got a chance to see me wrestle. They understand. You know, I was able to share. It might not be a big deal to other people, but as much heat as the WWE was taking over all the Saudi Arabia shows, it got completely lost on everybody that they had a women's match.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
In a day and age where everybody's bitching about this, that, and the other, I mean,
yeah.
You know, and not only what did they do it, they did it twice.
Right.
Well, anyway. I was able to share that with my kids and explain to them, and maybe they didn't think it was as cool or big of a deal now, but I was able to sit down with them and explain to them why that's important, why it's a big deal, and while I was proud of being a wrestling fan that happened. Yeah, you know, because there's not anybody else going over there doing that. Right. There's not the NBA's not sending girls over there to play basketball. Right. So you know, I don't know why wrestling always got to take a big kick in the dick, but. For those people that like to do the kicking, there you go. Top first women's match over in Saudi Arabia. Where was I going with this? See, that's I warned you. Perfect. No, I warned you. Where was I going with this? It's so good. You're bring me my juice. Shit, I knew that was going to happen.
We were summing up your career.
Yeah.
But I think I can't for anybody. Who doesn't know you personally?
That's a good way to sum
I don't think there's a better way to sum up your career or my life experience with you, man. Just, you know, we start on one thing and then it just veers off.
And it ends with, where was I going again?
And then it ends with, where was I going again?
Yeah, perfect.
So I'm going to wrap us up there for this week. We still have 3 more weeks with Rip Mystic coming up. Next week, Rip, we're going to talk a little bit more about your career, a little less what your career was like, and a little bit more about the experience, how you learned how to wrestle, where, you know, your big lessons, kind of how you developed as a wrestler. So,
okay,
I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to, and I'm glad people want to listen.
I'll see you guys next week.
Bye.